We are almost recording and on Twitter also. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo, Baseball Outside the Box. Thanks for joining us this evening. And we have a great guest today. I'll tell you what, one of the best, no doubt about it, in the business. We go back over 30 years. What a super individual. He's always had my back, been over to Belgium, done a bunch of stuff with me. He's traveled the whole world. I can't go through the whole resume, but you saw the resume, or you know Jim already. You talk about he started in 1965, Rookie of the Year with the Dodgers. He's the only guy to win in 2 World Series in Japan and also in the U.S. He's managed in the big leagues, 3 clubs. He's a hitting coach. I mean, player development. He's traveled the world. He was a Chinese national team coach in the Olympics. Got a chance to see how he operates there. They beat, and we'll talk about that. They beat Taiwan, which was a huge deal. So let me welcome my good friend for many, many years, just a super guy. You hang tight, because I said on Twitter, this is going to be one of the best shows that anybody's ever going to see. It's going to be like he's going to come and grab you and shake you and get you excited about baseball, because this guy's the most dynamic person in the game, and he's been in it after over 5 decades. Let's welcome Jim Lefebvre. What's up, Jim?
Pete, thank you for all those nice words. We've been friends for a long time, and we've covered a lot of territory, have we?
And I forgot, I was a student at Mick Young Baseball School when you came there.
That's right. I remember that. That was a great program they had out there too. And yeah, it's just great. This really some old good friends back then. And they stay with you. All, you meet them. We all talk baseball. We get to know one another, and no matter where you go in baseball, is whether it be in China, Japan, and in the big leagues, it's all about the game. So yeah, I appreciate that.
I'll tell you what, this is a perfect guest, because being in the game over 5 decades, you've seen everything. I'm not sure. I know we're always learning and constantly learning. There's changes going on, but you've seen it at many levels, but also throughout the years. And I want to talk about the changes that you've seen in the game, where the game's going and where you think the game should be going.
Well, the one thing is that when I came up, we had great pitching, and of course in the National League, with all the guy, Bob Gibson, Koufax, and Drysdale. We go on and on and on. Juan Marichal, you could name them, just great players. And it got to the point where it wasn't a lot of runs scored. So what do? They lower the mound to get you more offense. And so now we come back in and we get all this offense now. It seems like it's all about, hitting home runs. You know what I mean? And so everything kind of goes in cycles. And the one thing last year, which was kind of amazing for us to think about, is that there was more strikeouts in the major leagues than hits. And, we're talking about the big leagues, which is the best hitters in the world, yet they had more strikeouts and then hits, because everybody wants to have power right now. But, the good teams, we always talk about this, Pete, and you remember these days, no matter how good you are, no matter what kind of team you are, you're going to lose 1/3 of your games. And no matter how bad you are, you're going to win 1/3 of your games. So there's always 1/3 that's left open. And it's depend how you play that game as a team is going to determine how successful you've been. So it's not all about hitting balls out of the ballpark. It's about doing things. I talked to you earlier. We were talking about, I tell us hitters all the time, if you hit 30 home runs a year, is that a good year? And I go, oh yeah, well,
I thought so.
Yeah. And I said, well, let me tell you, I manage the big leagues. So let me give you my thoughts. If you're chasing 30 home runs a year in the big leagues, that means, and you're playing every day, you're going to get 600 at bats, which means that you're going to get 5 home runs every 100 at bats. The question is, so that's going to add up to 30, right? But the question is, what are you going to do with the other 95%? And, the teams that know how to work counts, that get base hits, to move runners over and take situations, those are the team that win in that 1/3. Because like I said, no matter how bad you are, you're going to win 1/3. And no matter how good you are, you're going to lose 1/3. So that's where it's all about. So the game in those 1/3 hasn't changed a lot. The good teams, I get the feeling from talking to a lot of scouts, is changing. They're looking for more guys getting on base now. Let's make something happen instead of just swinging from your rear end and hope that it counts. Because the guys will go out there and they'll get the 30 home runs, but I get fired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. And so anyway, we want to be a winning team. You have to beat the lineup, the entire lineup, leadoff hitter to your ninth guy. Everybody has to contribute, and the good teams they take advantage of that.
You know, folks, and just so you know, on Twitter also and on Facebook, if you have questions, just type them. You know, two things about Jim, everybody, I want you to know. One, he's going to tell it the way it is, and that's what I love about him. He's not going to hide anything. And two, for your folks, coaches that are working with real young kids, Jim also works with kids at the youth levels. So you're talking about any level, anywhere in the world. He's been everywhere. So when you got questions, don't worry about the question that you ask. Jim, as we talk about that, you know, you and I were talking offline a little bit. The game is changing in some ways, but you said also that it's kind of coming back to
Yes.
where it used to be, because we still have teams that don't bunt, they don't want to steal, and they keep going to the statistics saying, well, if I steal in this situation and the odds are slim, I'm not going to make it. Or if I've got a runner on second and I've got, I want to say, if you steal with a runner on first and he steals second and the percentages are low, why would I do that?
You know, Peter, that's a good point. Let me ask you something. When I was with the Oakland A's, I was a hitting instructor, with Tony La Russa, and a third base coach. And it was great for me because I was with Tony, who was, obviously one of the best in the game. And we had all this power. McGuire, Canseco. We had, Henderson. We had Dave Parker. You go on and on, the Bass brothers. Everybody was talking about power and power. Yet we were really struggling to go out there and win ball games. You know what I mean? So I started to realize, let's forget about scoring runs. You play a 9-inning ball game. I want to find out how many innings that you score in a 9-inning ball game. Let's make every inning, the leadoff inning, then the number 2 inning, let's make that a game in itself. But the statistics showed this, and I don't have it exactly 100%, but this is the way it worked out. If you don't score, you get shut out, or only score in 1 inning in a 9-inning ball game, your win-loss record was like 350. 350. If you just scored in 2 innings in a 9-inning ball game, it jumps up to like 450. But if you scored in 3 innings, that's all, in a 9-inning ball game, you're over 600 in the win-loss column. And if you get 4, you're going to win 80% of your games. So let's take each inning and call it a game itself. You see what I mean? Instead of just swinging from your rear end. So a guy leads off with a double. Move him to third, get him in, put a mark up there. Put a mark on the board. And that's 1 inning right there. It works out that way. That's just the odd numbers that we see in baseball. It's just the way it is. So our goals change from seeing how many home runs we hit and runs. Let's see how many innings we can score in a 9-inning ball game. And it turned our whole offense around. And that was the way we think. So, and we always talk, and we talked about earlier, one of the key things about baseball, the big inning. The big inning is still the most important thing in baseball. Everybody wants a big inning. And it's all based around the leadoff hitter getting on base, okay? And so what I did was, you always think about the leadoff guy. Okay, the Ricky Hendersons and all these kind of guys, great leadoff hitters. But you know what? When the game starts, that might be as they lead off the game for your team or whatever it may be, they may never lead off again. So what I did, I got statistical data that proved that every single player on my team, from Canseco to McGuire to all these guys, what was your on-base percentage when you led off a game? It could have been the 4th inning, it could have been the 7th inning, it could have been the 5th inning, whatever it was significant, because once you get something going, then things start to grow, the momentum changes. The average team in the big leagues is right around 4 runs per 9-inning games. 9 innings, okay? 4 runs, 9. So that means you're going to get a half a run by statistical data. This is all the things you read about. Okay, so that's half a run per inning. But if the leadoff hitter gets on base, it goes up significantly to 1 run per game. So everybody's going to be a leadoff hitter sooner or later. And so we're going to check it and see how you contribute to the lineup. Koufax once told me, we were talking about earlier, when I was a rookie, I came up in 1965. I just sat there on the bus, or in the airplane, and just kept my mouth shut. It's just an honor to be there. But after the season went along, you know, after the All-Star break, I'm playing every day now. So we get more friendly with all the teammates. And I had great teammates. Oh, that's the key. I had great teammates. But I was sitting with Koufax one day and I said, hey, Sandy, how do you pitch Willie Mays? He said, I'll tell you how I pitch Willie Mays. You got to pound him inside, right in there. You got to pound him in there. If you miss, you better miss right here in the ribs. If you miss a half a ball out that direction over the plate, you'll be looking for a new baseball. So then I said, well, how about Frank Robinson? Because he's with the Cincinnati Reds back then, and he's hanging over the plate. He said, you got to pound him in, but don't hit him. Don't hit him or knock him down, because you'll put the bat down, go to first base, and try to knock the hell out of the second baseman, which was me, of course. But anyway, but the bottom line, at the next at bat, he's gonna beat you with the bat. And so the bottom line, so then I go back and I said, Sandy, what about asking him somebody else? He stopped me. He goes, Frenchie, that was my nickname back then. Remember this, you don't beat hitters, you beat lineups. You beat lineups. Those guys that you mentioned, they're going to get their hits off me. They're going to get it. But you're going to get those guys in front of them out. And you better get that 6th, 7th, and 8th, and that 9th hitter out. Because the more that once they get on base or you make a mistake with those guys, it gives the other big boys one more shot at you later in the game. And I said, you know, that's right. Because he used to say, the first time you face a big-time hitter, he doesn't, we face them all the time. You know, I faced Bob Gibson and Juan Marichal and everything. You always figure what's working for them that night. But once you learn that, okay, so you're making an adjustment, no matter if you get a hit or not, because you're going to make adjustment my second at bat. And then so now you're getting a better idea because you're watching the game. And the third time, you're going to get, now it's a real competition because I know everything they have and what they're throwing up there. But if you have to face them the fourth time, I'm talking about the big boys, you'll never win. So the lineup is what it's all about. You got to beat the lineup. So that became our motto when we're the Oakland A's. Remember this. You have to beat all of us. You have to beat our lineups. And if they want to walk McGuire, let them walk it because Canseco will get him behind him or vice versa. You know what I mean? Pitch around him. And when you have that kind of understanding with your team, you're going to win a lot of games. We're going to win a lot of games.
Knowing all this, how would you construct a lineup nowadays?
I do the same thing. I mean, I just do the same thing as, you know, you get your speaker. This is a very interesting thing. I mean, we were talking about the year that the St. Louis Cardinals with McGee and all the guys that they had over there, all the, you know, the hitters they had. I mean, the base stealers, the year that they led the league and broke the record for a team in the history of Major League Baseball for stolen bases for a team. We're last in the whole league in runs scored. Now, why is that? Because when you steal a base, it's +1. Because what happens is that runner is one base closer to get the home plate, okay? But if he's caught stealing, it's -2. You lost a runner and an out. So when you keep giving up outs and, you know, trying to score, you know, run all the time, what's going to happen is they're going to start pitching out, they'll get you out. And so what happens is if you speed, what it does, it helps you more defensively than offensively in a lot of ways. But when you get up there and you got speed in front of you, you know, Kendo and all those kind of guys, you know, that were great players, because when they're on, you're not going to be throwing a lot of off-speed pitches, right? So you put your fastball hitters behind the guys in front. So now they're going to get pitches to hit. That's what you want. And so the year that they scored a lot of runs, when they really started going over, they had Jack Clark hitting 4th and Tommy Herr, who was in 3rd. And he was like 140 RBIs that year because they'd have all that speed up in front of them. And so the lineup is always based on your talent. You can't just, you know, I just go back a little bit. Okay, when I was with the Chicago Cubs, they wanted me to go out there and run the bases more. You know, we want to steal more. We got to get more, you know, get moving around. We got to sacrifice more. If you're giving up outs, you're taking opportunities to have big innings. So I kept saying, yes, if you have speed, use it. But the threat of stealing, actually, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Please mute your mic if you just joined us. I thought I muted everybody. My fault. Go ahead, Jim. Continue.
So it's all about how do you utilize your talent. You know what I mean? And that's why I did with my lineup. But you know what's the interesting thing, Pete, is some guys just don't like hitting in certain spots. You know, and they just like, listen, but guys, Okay. Anyway, that's how the lineup is today. And that's one of the things that managers have to do is to set the lineup up so everybody is put in a better position to be successful.
You know, and interesting enough, I want to talk about the game itself because you're talking about launch angles now. You're talking about shifts. You know,
Yeah.
if Jim Lefebvre was managing today, you know, what would you do to teach guys to hit the other way if they're going to do the shift? And what would you do as far as, you know, all the launch angle that's going on? How would you make adjustments there?
You know, that's a good question. Some guys can do it, some guys can't. But this is the way I always looked at it. If you're making $20 million a year, you know, and you're a hitter, and you can't tell me if they had a major shift on you, where everybody's on one side of the field, and you can't go up there and sit there and fight a ball off to you, hit a ball off the other way, or, you know, hit where the holes were. I mean, I just don't understand why they don't do more of it. You see what I mean? And
Where would you start with? Like, if you're talking to coaches now, if you're going to do those things in ball games, I mean, that's got to be practiced also, because a lot of these guys now aren't even practicing that.
Pete, you're right. And I'm going to tell you something. Working with Tony La Russa, when we were over with the Oakland A's, Tony made everybody understand. He said, I'm going to tell you something, McGuire. I'm going to tell you something, Jose. I'm going to tell you something, Dave Parker. And this, you're going to get 600 at bats, right? And I'm going to probably take about 10 at-bats away from you, which means that I'm going to ask you to, here we go in the ninth inning. We're down by 3 runs, okay? They're playing back because you got the power and everything like that. If you drop a bunt down and get a guy at first base, that's taking an at-bat away from you. We want the object, here was our thing. Our philosophy was a philosophy of no philosophy. And people say, well, what do you mean by that? We bunted when we needed to bunt. We hit and run when we needed to hit and run. We played the power game when we needed to do that. We weren't going to let our game dictate their defense how we're going to play. We're going to do what we need to do at that time to make it important for us to get something started. That's how you beat closers. So the point is, you have to practice that. And you got to work on it. And you got to say, this is going to be part of our offense. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to say, we're going to work on it. So in spring training, Tony laid it right on the we're going to let you go out there and get your plus, 600 at bats, but we're going to take about 10 away from you in the course of 162 ball games to, create good teams. Because good teams play the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. That's how you become a good clutch team. And you have to get something started. And sometimes this could be a bunt. And I've seen Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire and all these big guys come up there where we down by about 2 or 3 runs, late in the game. They go up there and almost drop a bunt down and go, what the hell's that going on here? Well, they're now at first base with nobody out. Changes the whole dynamics. So you have to work at it. And you got to realize that this is the way we're going to play the game because this is the way our team works. You have to beat our lineup. That doesn't mean the whole lineup is going to go out there and try to hit home runs. It doesn't mean everybody's going to go out there and try to bunt. But we're going to do what we need to do when it counts. So that's why we're not going to dictate. Because the St. Louis Cardinals, the year that they had all those stolen bases, teams knew they're going to run on the first 2 or 3 pitches. They pitch out, guy gets on base. He sets up the thing like that. Count goes 1-1, pitch out, boom, throw him out a second. You know what I mean? 1 out, let's go on to the next one. They've already -2, you see, right from the start. So it's a matter of, you have a philosophy and explain to you, we're all going to be involved in this. We're not going to say, okay, you're going to be a home run hitter, so don't worry about bunt. Or you're going to be a hit and run guy, don't worry about hit and run. You know what I mean? Or doing everything else. No, we're all going to be in to play those roles. It's important to do that.
Something also it's changing. No, I was going to say something that's changing also that is interesting is, I've talked about this, nowadays, obviously the velocity of the pitchers has increased by a lot. And we talked about, how the hitters now have to make an adjustment. I want you to kind of talk to that to the coaches, how you work with hitters to make that adjustment.
Okay. Let me just say this. Okay. And I'm going to talk about hitting now. And I'm going to talk about my experience because I've been around with a lot of great hitters over the time. And let me tell all these coaches out there, I've learned more from them than they kind of learned from me. I'm going to tell you the reason why, because everybody's different. I had Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco, 2 right-handed power hitters. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I would say so. They both went up there, but they were totally different in their makeup. They both had different approaches. They all had different things. One was a free swinger, swung from his rear end, and that's all he wanted to do is hit the ball as hard as he could. The other guy was a methodical, detailed guy. Watched the game. He understood what pitches he's going to get in certain counts and situation. He was a methodical, detailed guy. Now, the key is who's who.
I know the answer to that.
Now, I'll tell you, 99% people say Jose Canseco was a free swinger, and Jose. It was just the opposite.
Yeah.
Jose Canseco was one of the most intelligent, gifted hitters I've ever worked with. He really was. And he's smart and he's intelligent. Now McGuire was a rookie. And most rookies come in the league, they're just up there just looking for a ball and hit as hard as they can. I remember when Mark McGuire came up when I was there, when I was a hitting coach there, the press would come over to me because they got up to a good start. How many home runs are you going to hit this year? I don't know. I've never played in this league before. All I'm going to go up there and just give myself a quality at bat, and whatever falls out at the end of the season, that's what my numbers will be. And that's the way he approached it. That's what most hitters should do. Just look for a ball and sit down, understand the situation, and then execute. That's what it's all about. And Jose was a methodical. He could tell you, I don't know that guy's name out there, but I know the last game I played him, he threw two counts on breaking balls over here. He did this, he did that. He was calculating. Now, what happened was, Pete, as their careers went along, as far as I'm concerned, they kind of crossed. Canseco, I never ran into him when I was in Chicago one time, and we're sitting there, and he came over to me and said, the one thing that I really got disappointed, he said, I got caught up in all that power, just hitting balls out of the ballpark and everything. And he says, I wish I'd have stayed up just becoming a good hitter, because he wanted to be a good hitter, he was. Where McGuire was a free swinger, he became the guy that he calculated guy. He became the disciplined guy. As their careers went along, they kind of crossed paths. And I thought that was really interesting. The first couple of years in the big leagues, all my teammates when I was with the Dodgers, they say, listen, Jim, just do your job. Go out there and play second base. Don't worry about your numbers. We'll take care of the winning and losing, because, it's your first year in the major leagues, and you'll be there the second year. And usually when you're in the third, fourth year, you can start calculating what you need to do to become a winning type player. But until that happens, we'll take care of it. Just do your job. I thought that was a really, they kind of took the pressure off you. So anyway, to get back to, we're talking about different hitters and how you do it. But what we did is this. Okay, so simplicity is a genius to great athletes. So I figured that in order to teach these guys, the first thing I do is sit down with every hitter and say, what do you need this in spring training to get ready for the season? And when you're going good, what are you doing right? And when you start to struggle, let me know what your thoughts are. What should I be looking for? So we form a line of communication. It's about me getting them to play at the high level that we paid them to do, or whatever, doing their job. So that was the key. And so I found out most all these guys, they keep it simple. So simplicity is a genius to great athlete. So this is my hitting philosophy. I'll give it to you real quick. Number one, to play in the big leagues, to be successful, but not only in the big leagues, but we're talking about higher level baseball. You have to put the ball in play. Number one, you got to put the ball in play. If you can't put the ball in play, you don't have a batting average. Number two, you got to hit a fastball. Everybody's throwing harder than we've ever had before. If you can't hit a fastball, you better go get another job. You know what I mean? And then number three, you got to understand the value of ball flight. Number four, you got to master the bottom of the strike zone. Curveballs, changeup, off-speed pitches. Everything in baseball goes down. Sinkers go down. Curveballs go down. Sliders go down. Forkballs go down. You got to master the strike zone. Sammy Sosa, his probably wasn't hitting a curveball, but it was one that bounced 10 feet in front of home plate. He's swinging it. And he had to learn, to understand the ball flight. When we first started with Sammy, I say, Sammy, when you're looking for a breaking ball, what do you look for, it up or down? He said, I look for it down. I said, that's what every pitcher wants you to do. But you got to look for a ball. If it's a strike right at the knees, a breaking ball at the knees, where's it got to start? It's about belt high, a little higher. That's where you look for the breaking ball so you can track it. If it's going to start at the knees, by the time you swing, it's going to be in the dirt. And he goes, no. So the only way he could do that, I said, Sammy, we got to go out there and work on it. And guess who threw all the curveballs to him?
You did.
But I had to do that. Okay, so you have to master the bottom of the strike zone. And then the next one thing, we have this thing called exit speed. Years ago, this was way before we read about it now. Sandy Alderson was the guy that was really, when I was involved with the Oakland A's, was into getting on base and the slugging percentage. But he also gave me the privilege of going out there and testing all these high-end athletes from the fall league, which all wind up in the big leagues. And we found out the average exit speed in the major league, off the way we grade it. We have a test. We put a ball on a tee and we work on certain things. And we had the average exit speed for those high-profile athletes was 95 miles an hour. That's a Major League Baseball, off a tee with a wooden bat into a net, and all you do is put a radar gun up there and you start measuring it. Okay? That's what it was. Average exit speed was 95 miles an hour. When I took over the China program, on behalf of Major League Baseball, and from the call came from the Sports Ministry of China to Major League Baseball, and they said, we need to have somebody teach us, quote unquote, the Major League way for the 2008 Olympic Games, because baseball was still in the Olympic Games. So that's when MLB called me and said, we want you to go over to China. And I didn't want to go over there. I said, there's no way. I just don't want to go there, because I was managing the big leagues and I did a lot of things. And they said, no, wait, Jimmy, we want you to go over there. Well, I said, okay, reluctantly. Pete, money does talk sometimes. But anyway, I said, okay. It started, like it was October, November, December. They were doing the qualifying, because what they wanted to do, the China, when they want to go through the program so that they can be ready for the 2008 Olympic Games. See, when you're the host country in the Olympic Games, you have an automatic slot in every event. You don't have to qualify. But the bottom line is the Chinese did not want to get embarrassed. So they just want to go, because they were not a baseball country. So the bottom line is I had to go over there and teach them. And I wind up, because we started training right and everything. And next thing, to make a long story short, I wound up becoming their coach. But our exit speed was 82 miles an hour. There's absolutely no way you can hit power pitchers today who guys are throwing 100 miles an hour, 90 plus miles an hour at exit speed of only 20 miles. So I realized right then and there, Pete, I had to change my coaching. Not my coaches, my coaching, because I've been involved with hitting. So we redid the whole thing. We just put all things together, and I said, we're going to have to do this, this, and this. We finally went to Olympic Games. We had 5 guys over 100 miles an hour. 5 guys. Wow. And today, that's one of the key things that we work on. So you notice all those 5 things: put the ball in play, hit a fastball, understand the value of ball flight, master the bottom of the strike zone, and exit speed of 90 miles an hour. We didn't say one thing about mechanics, did we? Not one thing. But here's the deal. Now I'm going to go back to number 3, the value of ball flight. I go up to all my hitters sometime and I'll say, what is a good swing? And you get all kinds of answers. Short and quick, or, this and that, or, you go on and on. I say, that's a good answer, but it's not the answer. Okay, that's a good answer, but it's not what I'm looking for. And I say, that's very good. Open up. What do you think a good swing is? So finally the answer came. I said, let me tell you what this is. A good swing has produced good results. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So the way I went to my statistical guys when I was with San Diego, and what we did is we analyzed 3 years of every at-bat in the major leagues. Every at-bat counted. And we put a value to that at-bat. A value means a batting average. And this is what happens. A line drive in the major leagues, the batting average, with all those numbers, we had thousands of guys. The batting average was 738. That's a good batting average.
Yeah,
you
I'd say
so. Raise after the season's over and say, yeah, my batting average is 738. I'd like to get a good raise. A fly ball that goes off the bat and goes over 300 feet from home plate, a fly ball, the batting average is 180. Really? I said, yes. They have speed out there. That's why guys play off. They run balls down. They catch them. Any ball that goes beyond that, the batting average is 405. Doubles, home runs. Okay? And so a pop-up in the major leagues, the batting average is 025. Okay, now let's come out of the way into the plate. A strikeout in the major leagues, the batting average would be what? 0. Correct? Ball's got to put in play. A ground ball in the major leagues, the batting average, a routine ground ball in the majors is 230. All right? But this is the key, the real key. A hard hit ground ball in the major leagues, and believe me, I don't know where these guys come up with the statistical data, but they get it. The batting average is 491.
Mm-hmm.
So with those numbers, what would be your number objective when you go to home plate?
Well,
I would think hitting line drive would be number one, right?
Line drive or hard ground balls?
Yeah, you hit a line drive. But if
Yeah.
I miss, I want to miss hard down.
Down.
So the techniques of staying over the ball, how we approach it is going to go it. Now we go back to the whole thing I was talking about, 30 home runs. So if I get 30 home runs, is that a good batting average? And they go, well, I said, well, let me tell you something. We already talked about it. What are you going to do with the other 95 at bats? Because you're going to get your 30 home runs and I'm going to get fired because we're not producing runs. You know, see what I mean? So with those numbers, now you have a philosophy. Now we can sit down and let's start talking. And we start hitting line drives hard. And I don't want to sit there and just kind of ping the ball. We drive the ball. And another thing with a lot of people that don't understand about hitting, Pete, is, and you know, we talk about this all the time, but it's fun to talk it, kind of relive it again. Of those numbers, the batting average for balls that were pulled in the big leagues, pulled balls, was 314 with a high slugging percentage. The balls that go to oppo, we call oppo, the batting average was 290 with a below average slugging percentage. But the balls that were hit gap to gap, the great hitters, gap to gap, the batting average was 370 with high slugging percentages. So we want to stay in the middle of the field with power, because that's what the game is, power. We like to hit the ball hard. And so now that's a good starting point. You see what I mean? Let's take two players in the history of baseball. And I don't know if you know these guys, but I'm just going to mention names. A guy by the name of Hank Aaron. You ever hear of him?
No, first time.
Well, let me tell you who he is. and there's another one by the name of Roberto Clemente. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let me tell you about him. Two right-handed hitters, two power guys, Hall of Famers, great players. I mean, you can't, these guys, I just mentioned names out there. Their theory was when the ball's the other way, I go the other way. When the ball's inside, I pull it. And the ball down the middle, I drive to my strength. Right? Okay. Hank Aaron, when he went the other way, he drove the ball to right center. When he pulled the ball, he went right down the left field line. And another one was straight away left, like 700 some odd times. You know what I mean? That's where we call it his field. That was his field. When Clemente went the other way, he shot the ball right down the right field line. And when he pulled the ball, he drove it into left center because his field, Clemente's, was in right center. That's where he was an inside-out power guy. So by going to Hank Aaron and say, I want you to hit the ball down the right field line would be just as bad as saying, Clemente, I want you to pull the ball down the left field line. So you have to watch the hitter. And you got to see how he handles certain pitches. You got to see how he handles different things. And then every guy has a different some way approach because their field, I always say, your field is a little bit different than some of these other guys. And that's how you bring all of them, bring everybody together because they're all going to contribute to that. So that's all about
on that. And on that, because there's a question here from Two Good Italians, Giannoni and Mazziola. I think I did that right.
I remember him.
But, it kind of adds to this, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but all the pitching that's going up high velocity, they want to know, how come, the hitters can't catch up to those? Are they just swinging at pitches they shouldn't be swinging at? How do you make that adjustment? And I want to get to, you talked about increasing the speeds, 82 miles to 100 miles an hour. How did you do that also?
Exactly how to do it. We got a couple of hours?
Yeah.
Number one, I had to realize I had to change my thinking. So what I did is I worked for A-Tech at the time, and Jack Shepard was a good friend of mine, so I had access to all the pitching machines and everything like this. So what I did was this: I realized that hitting off machines can really hurt you, as you know. The ball, especially when you get in high speeds. So what we did was I took two KC machines, and I would put them right together, one right next to each other. So they're like two balls. And so what we do, we would turn the fastball up to about 100 miles an hour, whatever the machine can give us, just power. And then the other hole, because they're right next to each other, You get the ball, you put them in. You put a ball that would be a straight over the top right-handed curve, or a slider, or maybe a left-handed curve ball, or you're talking about you do that. And so we'd stand there and we would hold the balls up like this, and we'd put one ball in one machine or whatever it would, but drop it in there. They all knew that this is the fastball. This is coming out of this hole. I can look in that hole, but if I dropped a breaking ball in there, I could make my adjustment. But what they had to see, Pete, is they had to see a ball going 100 miles an hour or 95 miles an hour. And you can't find guys that do that in batting practice, because they're your pitchers. So, but the only thing, we never swung at a ball, never. We would just stand there maybe like in a bunting position, and when a fastball would come out, we'd try to bunt it, but we'd just stand there just so our eyes started to read speeds and see rotation. That's what Sammy had to see, is he had to see balls that were breaking, hard breaking balls. And they had to learn how to read it real quick and know which ones he could hit and which ones. Great breaking ball hitters do not hit great breaking balls. You got to learn how to lay off that. You look for the mistake and you hammer it. And so anyway, then from there, we had a series of drills. We used heavy balls that we were driving. Then we had a drill where we're hitting different types of tires, different things, all kinds of things. And then what we did was, when we had batting practice, and if you ever watch the Little League World Series and you see the guys on the mound, you know what I mean? And it's really good. And if the guy's throwing the ball right around 70 miles an hour, reaction time, because it's so short, Little League distance, the reaction time is all
like in the
as a
major leagues.
99 to 100 mile an hour fastball.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we brought all the pitching, we brought in 70 miles an hour. Is not hard to do with good batting practice pitchers. But that distance, that close distance, the reaction time was as a 99 to 100 mile an hour fastball. But remember this, when the ball would come out of your hand, from the Little League distance in batting practice, we wanted to have something on it. You have to take the stride out of it. Because the fact is that when it comes out on a normal fly of the ball, you'd already have your front foot down. Now, and you have to put the foot on the ground, no stride, but you can do all the loading. Get your hands moving and taking them back. Everybody has to get ready to hit. Hitting is always get ready, and then you swing. Get ready or take. Get ready to swing. That's the rhythm you get into. And so when we first started using those Chinese guys, oh my God, they would swing and the ball would go backwards. And then the next day was a week later, they were hitting from the side of the cage. You know what I mean? They just couldn't get the barrel out. But when the more they saw it, every week, it just got better and better to the point we could hit a fastball and we could turn it around in a Tokyo minute. And I mean, really, really work. That's what we did. We had a program that was based around different techniques. And you know what, Pete? We see a lot. The biggest problem we see with high school baseball and some situations, that coaches don't have a staff like we have in the major leagues. Mm-hmm. And so you tell a guy, go down to the batting cage and get yourself ready, because we're going to have batting practice. Well, there's nobody down there working with them on, drills. Greg Maddux was a pretty good pitcher, I think. When I managed the Cubs, Blaine, you talk about a treasure. Oh my God, was he special or what? And he'd come in my office all the time, after when he was there my first year with Chicago. And by the way, I was his first Cy Young win that year. Mm-hmm. And he would just pick my brains, and I would tell him what I learned over in Japan. Like, for instance, when you're a left-hand hitter in Japan, they always pitch the foreigners, Americans, right underneath their hands. So if you're standing up there and your bat's up in this area here, the target was always to shoot right under your knob. And you just couldn't get it to really drive it. You could hit the ball, but it'll be a pop-up or a little, you know what I mean? So I say, Greg, that's what you get, high profile left hand. Is that right? He'd go out and do it. And he had that ability to do it. Some guys try to do it and they make a mistake over the plate and the game's over. But the thing is, he was so good to be around. But so we always talked about how to handle certain pitches. And so that's what you have to do. You just got to grind it out, and you just keep working. Sammy Sosa, he couldn't hit a curveball to save his life. Became an outstanding breaking ball later on in his career because he saw so many of them, and he eventually became a real good hitter. So it's a basic on the program, and that's what I'm teaching kids now, is that we can hit fastballs. Mm-hmm. Because we have to take a process. It takes time, you know what I mean? You build on it. And that's pretty much what it was all about. And
so when you're taking batting practice, you're doing drills. I mean, one of the things I know a lot of coaches sometimes forget is that they let the kids swing at everything. Well, but aren't we trying to treat it just like the game a little bit so we learn the strike zone?
Absolutely, Pete. You hit the nail right on the head. I mean, you hit the nail right there, because that's true. We were down one time. We were in spring training. We'd go down to play the Washington Senators, and guess who was? There was a guy by the name of Ted Williams down there. Was their manager, and so everybody wanted to go down to Tampa, down there, whatever where they're playing. We had to go down there because he was sitting hitting all day long. And all their pitchers would get pissed off because we would come in there, hey, how you doing there, Ted? Can we talk hitting? And he'd go, yeah. He'd give clinics to all of our guys. And the pitchers get pissed off. He said, you're over there teaching them how to beat us, the pitchers. But Ron Fairley asked him one time, he says, we're talking about this, we're talking about that, and he goes up and he goes, what about this pitch right here? It's a fastball right across your letters, right up in here. He said, how do you hit that pitch? Ted said, it's a ball, take it. Next question. They didn't want to talk about it. Why should I talk about something that I don't have to hit? That's the way he was. Take it. It's a ball. Strike zone discipline is, like you were saying, is key. It's a real key to becoming a real good hitter. What guy can do, what he can't do. I mean, nobody's better than I remember when I first came up was our played against was Barry Bonds. My gosh. I mean, I was there when Hank Aaron was there. God, oh my Hammer. We call him the Hammer. He was just such a fluid hitter. I mean, we can't even begin, we call him Bad Henry. I remember one day when I was Dodgers, when they came up, and those days, we didn't have scouting reports, Pete. What we had is Koufax says, here's how I'm going to pitch this lineup today. I'm going to pitch Mays this way. I'm going to pitch McCovey this way. And I want my defense to play over here. And they tell you exactly how they're going to pitch and how we should defense again. We didn't need a chart. We didn't need to go back to our back pocket and pull out a guide and say, okay, where do I go from here? Oh, God, I got the wrong team. I got the Giants, and yet I brought the wrong card out. But Hank Aaron, when he'd go up there, so we're going through all these different guys, and here I am, a rookie, listen to all guys that I was a non-roster player, and now I'm in the big leagues. I'm sitting there going, God, Willie Mays, my gosh, Willie, well, we're going to play against him. It's like it's a whole different level. So we're going through all these different guys, Pound, Frank Robinson here. We got to do this. We got to do that. Well, we came to Hank Aaron I'll never forget it. He goes up there, and Koufax was there, Drysdale was there, Walter Alston are going along. He says, okay, Hank Aaron, Hammer, how are we going to pitch Hammer? That room got dead silent. And everybody just kind of stood there. And Walter Ross says, okay, when he hits it, make sure there's nobody on. Next. That was, that's how we couldn't defend those guys. But that's how we did it back then. And you know what I mean? And everybody was, we have scouting reports is watch the game. That's your scouting report. And so, but that's just being we'll call it professional. You know what I mean?
I'm going to take a question here from, again, it's not that we have all Italians on the show, but Frank Giannoni asked a question here, and it happens to be about an Italian hitter also, Joey Votto, obviously a very good hitter. And he asked, one of the greatest hitters that ever swung at a bad pitch, ribs of walks, highest OBH, phenomenal eye, thoughts on Joey Votto, basically. And what he does also, I'm going to add, what he does also is the same thing that Rizzo does here in Chicago. A lot of times with 2 strikes, man, they choke up a lot more.
Oh,
so
Votto,
your thoughts on Votto?
Votto is a professional hitter. Votto played one year. I mean, I'm sure he did it many, many, many times. He only popped up one time the entire year in the infield. One time. He always stayed over the ball. His theory was using gap to gap, primarily going over to left center because he was an inside out type of guy. He could hit home runs when he needed to. He was a competitor up there. He was a guy that had a real good idea what pitches he want. Wade Boggs was very similar to, they're very similar type hitters. They both had tremendous power, but they were basically up the middle, slightly to left center, those type of guys. And Boggs, his theory was this, when you're up there to hit, what's the one thing you think about when you go? See, the one thing is this, when you go to home plate, you have only one thought. It's called master your swing thought.
That's going to be my question.
Well, the question is, you have to know what your swing thought is. Ted Williams was stay back, and when the ball comes, be quick and through the ball. And he'd like to pull the ball, so he wanted to make contact more out front. That's how he did that. And when they played the shift over on him in Boston, he said, good, I'll hit right through the shift. And they did it. So Novato, those guys, they got the power, but they use the middle of the field and go more to left side of the plate. You know what I mean? But Boggs said this. He said, what I did, he kind of sat there and he thought about it. He goes, when I go up there to hit, I feel my swing. I feel it. And all I got to do now is put that swing on a ball. Look for a good pitch and take that swing and put it on a baseball. That was all he thought about. And yet he had a real good approach. Take the inside pitch, which is basically the middle of the plate, slightly in, right back to the middle. If the ball's away, he just hit the ball and hit it off the green monster. You see what I mean? Now, Votto's very similar as far as what I've seen. But just watching him, he stays over the ball. He doesn't get out of his hitting, his thought. He goes up there and he competes, and he's got high batting averages, but he doesn't have everybody wants him to hit more home runs. You know what I mean? But this is what he likes to do. This is what he makes him best.
Why do you think guys like Votto have such a good eye for the strike zone? Certain guys have a real good eye for the strike zone, and some guys do not. Is that, we talking about, developing that? It's a vision training. What is that you believe that why some guys can do that better than others?
That's a good question, Pete. And I'll tell you one thing, it's always been a question. A guy like Barry Bonds, all his talent and smart. Don't forget, he was a 2-time MVP hitting everything to left field. Remember that? Barry Bonds. Then he decided to start pulling everything. And then he started pulling everything for, 73 home runs. He just kind of changed his whole idea. But the one thing he had tremendous vision. They picked the ball up real quick. And most of those guys, every single one of those, they get started sooner. And get started sooner means they go back. It's a rhythm. They kind of go back, they get ready, they see the ball, and then they react to what they see. They have the ability to slow the game down. And that's what those guys do. They have an idea. Barry Bonds talks about hitting. I got to know him fairly well because of his dad. We always competed against each other when we played the Giants. And so then he became, and then we got to know each other. And he's this is one of the smartest men I've ever heard. His techniques and everything like this was fantastic. But he looks for a certain part of that ball. He wanted the upper inside corner, top of the ball, and that's where he attacked it. He kept his hands and the barrel above the ball. They never hit down on the ball. They hit through the ball and going forward. You know what I mean? If I hit the bottom of the ball, Pete, where's it going to go? Up, right? Right?
Yep.
If I hit the top of the ball, where's it going to go? Down. So when you're popping up all the time, instead of trying to change your whole swing around, change your sights. Look for the upper half of the ball and go after it. And that's what those guys do. They know the part of the ball that they have to hit in order to get the results that they want. That's the key that those guys do. When Jose Canseco, the year that he went out and he had 40-40, his main swing thought, I have a whole list of all those guys that I've mentioned, I got to know as many as I could. What was your swing thought? George Brett, what was your, swing thought talking about Willie Mays? So all that like this. Those kind of guys have an idea of what Canseco was. When I see the ball, I want to get the bat on the same plane as the ball and keep it all the way through contact. So what it forced him to do is to read the ball right out of the pitcher's hands as he's getting ready. Here it comes. And now he goes in. We call it the first is broken. Hitting is broken up into 3 areas. It's picking the ball up out of the pitcher's hand. That's number one. You got to know where it comes out of here, and you got to read it. It comes out right out of your hands quickly. It goes right into, that's called the identification. You pick up the ball there. Then it goes into decision phase, which is it's right in the middle there, where it goes in and it goes fastball, curveball, up, down, in, out, up, down, ball, strike. You got to make a decision. Where that ball is, what it's doing, and you got to commit to it. Then it goes in what we call the dark zone. And believe it or not, I've been using it all in my coaching, and I got that from Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux used to talk about all the time. When that ball gets into the dark zone, because of the way he grips it and everything, the ball will, you think you got it, you're going to move a certain way, then it right gets in dark zone, it breaks the one way or the other. A little bit of a movement. He gets the ball off the sweet part of the bat, either hit it on the end of the bat or get jammed. And he was a brilliant guy. He always pitched to contact, but he had great late movement. You know, one thing we always hear about guys who are really good pitchers and they've been in the big leagues and great success is they had late movement. You couldn't pick the ball up until it was almost on top of you, which you have to do. We try to stay over the fastball. When you watch movies and watch a game on television and you see all these guys that are hitting against power guys, when the fastball comes, the barrel was always, 99% of the time, is always under the ball. Always under the ball. And they go slow mo, a swung on a miss or underneath the ball. Now you go to a curveball, what is the ball? They're always over it, right? So that's kind of what you're reading. Now you watch it. So if we stay over the breaking ball, stay over the fastball. Here it comes. Keep our hands above the ball, above the strike zone. And when I see that, I keep my hands in the barrel above the ball. Once I see a breaking ball, the spin, then I immediately go to the bottom part. And you know where I got that from? Joe Morgan. I asked Joe Morgan one day, I said, Joe, why do you Cincinnati Reds just crush breaking balls? He says, you know what? Our theory was when you see a breaking ball, get the barrel below the ball. Because what happens, the ball breaks to your barrel. But if you swing at it right at the ball, you're either going to top it or miss it. You're going to be over the ball. So we stay over the fastball. And when we see the spin out the curve, get the barrel below the ball. And what I do is I got endless film of every hitter, and we watch the contact point. Because once that front foot comes down, Pete, every single hitter are all the same. There's no such thing as 5 different swings, but there is about 3 or 4 different points of contact. You know what I mean?
You know, and you talk about the science and talk about the filming and all that. Technology-wise, has technology helped us, or has it also hurt us in some ways? Do you use it? Because I know you work with a lot of young hitters now.
Well, that's a good point. And I'm going to tell you something. I learned this from Harvard, at school Harvard. Every year they have a seminar, and it's called the Brain, Mind, and Learning Institute. It's there at Harvard. I don't know if they're still doing it. Back then, they would have this, and they would bring all these intellectuals all over the world that went to Harvard, and they bring them in there to talk about how do we learn, how do we retain, and how do we get understanding about how to learn. So this one particular time, they did it on professional golfers. And so they came in and they wanted to know how you learn on golf. And they found out this. If you look at excessively amount of film, watch every golf swing, you should have a note on there. This could possibly hurt your swing by 40% because it becomes all mechanical rather than feel. Good hitters talk about feel. They don't talk about mechanics. They've worked and developed their swings based on feel. So when you get in the game, because when you have a release, guy throws a ball 90 miles an hour from the point of release to the point of contact, it takes 0.4 of a second to get to the point of contact. The average hitter takes 1.6 of a second to get the bat from your back shoulder to the point of contact. So you don't have a lot of time there. So you got to train the dark zone so that, you got your swing built so you automatically react to what you see, but you got to learn how to pick it up sooner. But if you get too wrapped up in positioning of my feet, my stride, my leg kick, dropping my shoulder, and everything like this, case in point, one of the key things that you have to do to be a winning ball club is the runner at third base with 1 or less outs. Okay, and especially if you have a runner at third base and you have the infield playing back, that's a gimme. All you got to do is just chop a ground ball to the shortstop or second baseman, you know what I mean? And then get that runner in. That's that one mark on your team. You know what I mean? That one mark, you get that run that we scored in that inning. And it's stuff like that. But the biggest problem is when a guy's at third base, too many guys want to elevate the ball. So the first thing that happens, the shoulder dips. And when the shoulder dips like this, you're going to either get under it, which you'll foul it back, or pop it up, or top it all the time. Why change your swing? I always say another good way of driving a guy in from third base with 1 or less out, hit a double. Okay, you know what I mean? But why don't you try to drive the ball into the gap? Because if you get a double, we keep the inning going. But if you don't, the guy catches it and the runs comes in. We score. It's just a matter of knowing what to do. And the only way you're going to do that, Pete, is to practice it over and over and over again. So when they get into a game with pressure, they say, I've been here before. I know what I can do. When you watch too much film, you can literally clutter the brain up with too mechanical thoughts. And now you're not going to react the way you should be to get that guy in.
Quickly, only because Jen, and I know Jen had a question. I didn't get to it yet because I was waiting for the right time. She's got to leave, but I do want to ask on, if you got a young kid, she asked, and, he's right-handed, let's say, and your dominant eye is your right eye. Do you switch him around?
No, I don't go that far. I mean, don't forget I was a switch hitter.
Yes, that's right. It's another good point.
Yeah, I started young, and I think if you're going to get a young kid, boy, I'll tell you what, I started picking it up in high school. And every time I see a kid now today, and 12 years old or 11 years old, I say, stay with it, man. You're going to make it really, really help you your longevity. So the key is we get too technical about what eye is dominant at the other eye, and being a switch hitter, I had both ways. Now my batting average in the big leagues was 297, right-handed. Left-handed was 230. But I hit more left-handed when I was in the big leagues because there's just more right-handed pitchers versus left-handed pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I went over to Japan when I was over there, Pete. Suddenly, everything changed. I hit almost 400 left-handed. And for some reason, it was a lot of the drills that we did and changing my thinking and trying to realize it's just things. So you got to be careful. We can get too technical with these kids. And by watching them, what I do is I'd like to watch the guys, see what their swings are, start figuring out what part of the field is going to be their field, how we're going to work on it. Then start doing, there's all kinds of creative type of drills that will simulate what we need to do to become a successful hitter up there. And that's one thing that I've done. And I'm not trying to brag about it, but all I did is went to all these different players and said, what drill do you like the number one? What's your best swing? Wade Boggs. What's your favorite swing? George Brett. And what you're thinking on is getting their thoughts. And how can we incorporate that into, eventually incorporate it into our development phase?
I'm going to say, Jen, have a great practice. And hopefully we got your question and that was good. We'll try to get some more questions. And Jimmy, what's, you hear a lot about staying through the ball. Explain staying through the ball and why it benefits a hitter so much.
Because it just makes you stay with, as the ball's coming in, you got to be careful about turning your head too soon because you're going to start to dip. But at the same time, you need to, when you hit the ball, you got to follow it because what it does, it allows the rotation. You allow the finishing of the swing. So we just have to, because a late movement, sometimes the guy, are we having trouble with sound?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. See, what we do is creative. There's a couple of drills one's called the drop drill, and we have it. I drop it. What we do is this: I'll take a ball, and from the point of release, like we talked about before, at a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, gets to the center of home plate in 0.4 of a second. And now we have a ball coming in. Now we can go 1.6 tenths to that point of contact. So what we can do now, we can do creative things to really show them if I drop the ball right at chest high, and if they can hit the ball before it hits the ground, if it hits the ground, they can hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. But I say, okay, now we're going to have to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. I hope that I hate to talk about this because the bottom line is I've been doing it so long, I know exactly how to handle it. Because some guys try to do it, and they're afraid to drop the ball, and they can mess the guy's timing up. But when we get that thing going, I said, now this is real time, but you're tracking the ball. This is what he does, Sammy Sosa. The drop ball forces you to track the ball going down and get the barrel, and it just clicked for him. We had a guy by the name of Randy Kutcher when I managed AAA, a 5-tool guy. He could fly. He had he could play every position on the field except pitching. He was unbelievable. Perfect guy for a team because he could catch, because you always want to have that backup catcher. He could flat fly. He was a great base runner. He could not hit a breaking ball at the AAA level for development. Yeah, there you go. right at the chest. You got it, Pete. Just stand right there, drop it. It takes 0.4 of a second from right about shoulder, but right about here, a little bit above, right about the, we're a little bit above the belly button. Okay, it takes 0.4 of a second to hit the ground. So if I could drop the ball and I could hit before it hit the ground, you could hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. But you know what? If you stand there like this and wait till you see the ball and then try to hit it, you'll never do it. You cannot do it. But as I'm taking the ball and holding it out in front of you, I'm starting my hands back, starting moving. And what happens is, this is really important. I hate to talk about this because what happens, I take the hands go back and I said, now take it right out of my hand. And I said, they start to swing at the ball. When they start at the ball, I drop it and they'll track it and they'll hit it maybe 2 feet out of my hands. And they'll say, wow. And I said, now you're hitting the ball in 100-mile-an-hour range. And they go, wow, this is really good. Now what we need to do is start seeing the ball coming at a high speeds. And once you know they can do that, you can train them different. There's a whole, and maybe someday, because we've always been friends, and if we ever did something, we'll do a series of drills to correct flaws. That's what we're trying to do, or maintain, your stuff. A lot of times, when a guy gets in a groove, you want to know how to keep him there. And sometimes overcoaching, looking at too much film, will get you out of that. Honestly.
Jim, how important is using the ground? You know, a lot of times kids will stride and, you know, their foot's still up and then they're starting their swing. And talk about the ground itself, how important it is to use that and how to use it.
It's called, it's how to use it. You rotate. I mean, you literally rotate. And it's the power is all in the center court pivoting, okay? There's a book called Sadahara O, you know, from Japan.
I was lucky enough to work with him.
There you go. And you know what I'm talking about. He was a gift, and I'm going to tell you something. I got to know him really well. I got his book. I bought 50 of them one time, 50 books, and I gave them to every one of my hitters to say, I want you to read this book, because this guy was a gift. But the ground, the way he did was, what he did when he went to Japan, they wanted to go during the off season and find the perfect swing by going to all the different martial arts, Aikido, judo, all sumo, and they have tons of them over there in Japan. They went to all the different dojos, and they wanted to find out, how can we apply this? The basics of the swing came from the ground up, number one, and the timing is from the ground up. And he worked his butt off, and he got to the point they called Aikido. Aikido is how to use the ground and the power. So once he got that down, now they had to get the barrel to the ball. So they went to Kendo, which is all swordsmanship. So they had to blend, because he was a lunger, Sadara-o. He'd jump at the ball, and he dropped his hands. But when he went into the new style, he lifted his leg up, you know, like a they call it the flamingo style. He'd pick it up and had to eliminate the lunge. But from there, when that foot comes down, they're in rotation. And suddenly but you hold everything back as they start to go forward, it creates torque in the body. That's where the power comes from. But the ground starts it up, it goes to Kendo, and that's how it gets to the ball. And they call it the samurai, you know, the ball. Then he had to think about, how do I take that into a game? You know what I mean? Sadaro, the Zen way of baseball. Zen is just nothing, a way of focus. That's all it is. It's a tremendous book. And everybody that's really interested in learning how this way, it'll tell you some phenomenal things. It's a great story about a player and a coach and how they worked hard to find the perfect swing. I mean, Sadaro, when he first came on the big leagues, hit 270. He hit 9 home runs, drive in 60 RBIs. That wasn't good enough. So he finally got this teacher to come in, his sensei, Akawa-san. His name was Akawa-san. He came in there, and they went out and started working all this type of stuff. And now he's hitting 390. He's hitting, 40, 50 home runs a year. He's driving in, 150 RBIs, and probably strike out 30 times in a game. I mean, the whole season, 30 times. The numbers are just, you got to be kidding me. His numbers are dramatic, but he changed his swing. Never dreamed he was going to be that type of hitter, but he put it together, and suddenly it just worked. Yes, the ground is critical, very critical.
You know, on that, Jim, because I know you spent a lot of time in Japan. I want to talk a little bit about that, because I've been fortunate to go there a bunch of times. And what did you take back, the most you took back from Japan, being through that training? And that was a long time ago. I believe they trained pretty hard back then, and they train hard now. But what did you take back that you learned the most that helped you as a player, but also you as a coach and manager?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Their strategy is sometimes
Yeah,
I don't even know
questionable.
what they're doing.
You
But I'll
you
tell you
don't know
what.
what.
But I'll tell you what. We were there for one reason: power, because they don't have the power. Every one of their coaching back then was all holding the bat up like this and whoosh, flip it, run to first. You know what I mean? It's they were never working on it. I remember one time, Pete, we're sitting there, and one day I'm just putting on I came over there, and I've been there for now about a year. You know what I mean? And so I'm sitting there taking batting practice one day, and I'm hitting the ball out of sight. I just had one of those days where everything else hit was long and hard. You know what I mean? I was just crushing balls. And they come over to you, and you know when you're in Japan, when you get them sucking air, and they go, oh, you know, and we know we had them, see, but we had a lot of fun with them over there. But anyway, I'm taking batting practice one time, and they come, oh, Lefebvre-san, you have a nice power, you hit the ball hard. And I said, where do you get such power? And I said, well, first of all, I don't hold the ball like bat right up in here. I get that bat back in here, and I'm loading on my backside. I said, why don't you try it? Just try it. Just go up there and take batting practice. They go, oh, we cannot do that. Why? Because we have no power. I said, well, try it, and maybe you'll have power. Oh, we cannot do that because we have no power. And they just get stuck. I said, well, you never know, you know. And we all know Hank, holds the record for the most home runs in professional baseball. Of course, it's in Japan, but he's got like 800 some odd home runs. But yeah, you've been there, so you've seen it. I think the biggest thing about Japan is they overtrain. They get carried away. They feel that when you go to the ballpark, the way you prepare, baseball is in three categories. You prepare to do your job. And then once you do that, when you go across the white line, in other words, the game starts, it goes to the second part is anticipation. You got to understand whether you're playing a position on the field or a hitter or no matter what it is, there's a situation. So you prepare. So now you anticipate because the way the game is played. And then the last thing, of course, you execute. So when the ball's hit to you as a defensive player, you make the play. If you're up there at home looking for a ball and when you're hitting, I'm looking for a certain pitch, whatever, I execute. I don't foul it off. I execute. That's what it's all about. I think they believe that the way you train before the game is going to determine how successful you're going to be during the game. And I'm going to tell you something. I've had a lot of guys that I've had in the major leagues that big time, really good players. One was a guy named Will Clark. You remember him? Mm-hmm. He'd take batting practice every day and you go, Will, you all right? And he'd just go up there and he was like asleep, But boy, when it got game time, he got serious. Batting practice is a way you prepare to perform. But if you're having a good batting practice, they let you play. But if you go up there like Will Clark had a bad batting practice, they take you out of the lineup. Why am I out of the lineup? Oh, your condition today is no good. No, I'm getting ready to play. They really believe that pregame workout is an extension of the game. And I'm gonna tell you something. We go out there and when we're a traveling team, and we get 40 minutes to take batting practice for our whole ball club. That's the major leagues. In Japan, they get 1 hour before the game. Mm-hmm. And here you are taking ground balls and hitting. By the time the game starts, you're tired. I mean, let's say leave. I think that they had a lot of great ideas. Where when you're in a big league, some guys get really lazy. I mean, we have guys over here. One of the things that Tony La Russa used to believe in, he said, never let players get comfortable. If you prepare correctly for the game, mm-hmm. I'll be able to handle anything that you do. If you don't have a good game, so what? You're prepared. It didn't work. But if you don't prepare and you just go out there and then he gets upset. You prepare every single game. Their practice is an extension of the game, and I think that's wrong. It's just way over training, way over it. And they're real hard on their players. They make a mistake. You saw that. Mm-hmm. So, you got to realize that you're going to make outs. I haven't yet, but I've never seen a guy hit 1,000 in the big leagues.
No. Jim, on batting practice, sometimes you have young kids, or any actually player. I had some in independent ball. They would have not a very good, batting practice. They'd struggle a little bit, and it became a mental thing. How do you get out of that to get ready for the game? Some guys can do it, but some guys can't.
You're right. And that's where it's really important about coaching. My thing is about, see, and the thing about, as a coach, got to remember this. What you say, it registers the brain. For instance, in psychology, and what we found out through the training part, when you say don't, the brain doesn't understand that. So don't swing at a bad pitch. You take don't out of there, it says swing at a bad pitch.
Yeah.
Or don't make a mistake. You see what I mean? Where versus you got to learn how the language it is. So what I try to do is make them always think about what part of the ball I want to hit. And Pete Rose was the best of the best. Speaks into what he's done. You know, when he got 4,400 some odd hits, you listen to what he has to say. Pete Rose used to measure his batting practice every day. He said, I had a great batting practice today. I got 35 hits. He counted how many hits he got in batting practice.
Wow.
Because he always working on hitting the ball to hitting it. He wasn't thinking about his mechanics. See, the old days, Pete, the old days, we used to sit around the batting cage and kind of BS with all the other guys, you know, the other team and everything. And Pete would get her, hey, Frankie, watch this. Line drive to left. He's sitting left-handed, right? Watch this. Line drive to left. Boom. Line drive to the middle. Boom. Line drive to road. Boom. Double off the wall. Boom. And he'd call out the shots. And I'd say, this guy, he takes batting practice serious. So what we tried to do, and you know, you ever hear, you know Sean Green? Mm-hmm. Sean Green, remember when he was with the Dodgers, but also came up with the Toronto Blue Jays?
Yep.
There's another book about his training. It's absolutely brilliant about what he did in batting practice that carried over to being one of the best players in the game at that time. But you take batting practice, you can get in a lot of bad habits. So here's what we do, Pete. This we call closing the loop. Okay? You warm up, you form up, you time up, which is live batting practice, and you play. And now you do it every day. Every day you warm up, you get loose, get your body loose, start working on a couple things. Then you form up. Everybody will have something they want to work on. Maybe it's going to be tonight we're going to face this left-hander and I'm a right-hand hitter. I'm going to have to probably shoot to the right side of the diamond. You know what I mean? Hit the ball in the right center gap. So I work on that in BP or whatever it may be. But the thing is, then you time up. So when I get in batting practice, I've already warmed up. So my batting practice becomes better quality. You see what I mean? It's instead of getting in batting practice and take the first 10, 15 swings, because you're going to get about 25 swings in batting practice normally. You're going to take your 10 swings just to get loose, and then you try to rush it to get back in the ball game. So we took batting practice really, really hard, and we made sure that they warm. Now, you can't always have the perfect fit where you warm up, then you form up, and then you take batting practice. So you're going to have some guys taking batting practice first, then they have to go back and do the warm-up, and those are the guys who are not playing that night usually. But we usually take our best players and we'd go through that routine every day. We'd do it. And it wasn't all about how many swings you have. It's how you did it correctly, you know? Yeah, that's how I did it. So, yeah, you got to work that. Go ahead, Pete.
No, you're good. On that, when you talk about batting practice, what's Jim Lefebvre's batting practice look like? Because you're hearing some things now in the minors. And in a second, I'm going to have Pat Ahern ask you a couple questions. He's online also.
Okay.
But you're hearing a lot of minor league clubs, younger clubs that are actually running batting practice now with live pitchers. You know, they might warm up and get ready, and then they'll throw in a couple pitchers in there to prepare for the game, throw curveballs, throw other pitches. You're seeing more of that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you can get carried away with that. I've known guys that called me up and asked me all kinds of questions about taking quality batting practice. I had one guy call me up one day and he says, Jim, I never got a hold of the guy. But he sent me an email, said, man, I got to really need some help. We're going to face a guy that throws about 95 miles an hour. Oh, how do you approach this guy? And I tried to get back to him, but he didn't know what to do. So he took a Casey machine, put it on the mound and a shorter distance and had to throw 95 miles an hour. And I called back and I said, how'd you do? He said, well, I put the machine up there short, throw 90 miles an hour. We punched out 23 times and we got one little base hit, which was a number up the third baseline, and that was it. So they overtrained. You know what I mean? They got to, when you hit fastballs, you got to start sooner. And Christian Yelich right now is a great example of a guy. First of all, everybody says, what has changed this guy to be the hitter he is today, you know, with the Milwaukee Brewers? He was always a good hitter down in Miami. He was a great hitter. but
Right.
the ballpark was not built, the way that he had. But he said, I haven't changed a thing. The only thing I do is when somebody's really throwing hard, I just start sooner. Just relax, start to get ready. So I am ready sooner so I can make those swings rather than wait until I sit and then rush to the ball. That's when you're going to wind up swinging the bad pitches and everything. So what we try to do is just don't get carried away. You know what I mean? Short distance at 70 miles an hour and just concentrate. Charlie Manuel, when he was managing, for the Cleveland as well as, in the Phillies. But Charlie was a really good hitter. And he went to Japan over there. And he played in Japan when I was there. We became really good friends. And we used to talk all the time. Charlie, how do you do this? So now he goes over to Cleveland. He gets the job. He's the hitting coach for the Cleveland Indians. And he's got guys like Manny Ramirez. And he goes right on down the line. Alomar, it goes on and on and on of all these guys that he had. And so now they're just crushing the ball. And I asked him, I said, Charlie, how you doing? I yelled at him across. He's over behind the cage. He goes, Frenchie, I tell my guys, sit on a fastball and make contact out front. If you can make contact out front, you can play in this league. If you can't, see you later. I said, no, come on. What are you teasing? That's all I teach him. Make contact out front. I said, okay. I said, all right. That's all he taught him. Make contact out front. That's the guys that drive the ball. But let's take a guy like Manny Ramirez, okay? Kind of a unusual guy. Everybody knew what kind of player he was. I know all those coaches when he was with the Dodgers. I said, so we go over to play him, and I was managing the Cubs. I'd go in there, you know what I mean? I said, hey, how's everything going? How's it going with Manny? He said, Jimmy, I'm going to tell you something. He's the most unbelievable player. He works his first round. All he does, he's a right-hand hitter, as we know. All he do is just chop and try to hit ground balls to the second baseman. That's all he did. Sit there and chop, hit the ball to second base. And then the next round, he'd get up there and he'd try to hit a little harder. You see what I mean? But he worked hard to the right center gap, because that was his gap. You know what I mean? Hit the ball out there, right center. He'd work on it. And he said, then he would get going to the third round, then he'd start popping a few. But the thing about him, he worked hard on hitting ground balls to second baseman and driving the ball to the field. But when the game started, he did nothing but pull. He was a dead pull hitter. But he worked, all his training was to stay, because he wanted to keep the front shoulder in, and he wanted the ball to get deep, and he wanted to get his hands inside the ball. See, we always talk about staying inside the ball. You have to. That's how you get the barrel to the ball. We're not trying to inside out and just hit a little weak swing. If the ball's inside, you got to pull your hands in to get the barrel to the ball, right? So anyway, make a long story short, that's Manny Ramirez. Let me tell you another key story. I called Ryan Sandberg when I was with the Cubs. And Rhino was just a phenomenal player. We all know what kind of player he was. And he came up through the Philadelphia Phillies. And he finally got to the big leagues, just for a cup of coffee back then. Then they made a trade with the Cubs. And that's how he wound up becoming a Cub. And he was always a good hitter. He could always put the ball in play. He knew how to get hits, but he never showed really power numbers. So one time, Don Zimmer came up there and told him something. And he said, once he told him what that was, he said, he turned around to be the guy that he was. So I asked him, I said, what did he tell you? What did Don Zimmer, who has, been around for baseball all his lifetime, he was the manager for the Cubs at the time. He said, Rhino, when you're in batting practice, when you're taking batting practice, work on just hitting the ball through the middle. But if the ball comes inside, I want you to work on pulling the ball over the third base coaching box. Get the barrel out. I get the barrel out there. He was down in spring training. This is what Ryan was telling me. So I said, okay. So I was taking batting practice. Ball came me, try to qualify. He said, I got 2 home runs, and you know the rest of the story. That was it. He just said, sit there, look at the ball, drive that ball's inside, learn how to get the barrel out front. Today, you talk to scouts, and most of them will tell you, we can't get kids to pull the ball anymore. Everybody's oppo. They're dragging the bat through, trying to go the other way. The elbow flies up. The production goes down as far as hitting the ball rather than trying to drive the ball. But see how one little thing? And he was already in the big leagues having decent years. And he said, yeah, let's get the barrel out in front a little bit more and the ball from the middle in. And he picked it up just like that. And it's no thing. Can I tell you about another story?
Yeah, let me go ahead. And then I want to have Pat ask a question. Go ahead.
Okay, one quick story, and I hope your coaches can understand this because I still talk about this a lot. When I became the manager of the Seattle Mariners, I go from my first year of managing. I was with the Oakland A's. I got the job with Seattle, so now I'm going up there spring training, and everything is is going along fine. So just about 10 days before the season started, I'd say about 10 to 12 days before the season, my shortstop goes down. We didn't have a shortstop on the team. Now I had a couple guys that could go out there and play a day or two at short. Because, they've all did it. They did a little league, all that stuff. But if you want to be a quality player, you got to have strong down the middle. So we need a shortstop to make the routine plays more than anything else. We didn't have anybody on my staff on the roster that could do that. We had nobody at AAA. We didn't have the money to go out there and buy a guy. We didn't have the money to trade, because if we traded to get a quality shortstop, we may have to give up 2 positions. Now we got to cover those 2 positions. They said, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. We got a guy, a young player, 19 years old, just turned 20 years old, down at AA. He's got a below average arm. He's got below average speed. He's got below average range. And the guy will never, ever hit in the big leagues. He's not a strong guy. He'll never be a strong guy, but he will make the routine plays. Now, we had just drafted from high school, right? He's in the minor leagues. I can't bring him up and put him at the major league level. I said, if that's all we got, bring him up. I'll throw him out there, and we'll just go out there and use him. Because if he's going to make a routine play, when my pitcher puts the ball on the ground, you got to make a play. That's just the way we're going to do it. He said, he will do it. So he comes up there, and he put him out there field. He sit there and say, wow, this guy's pretty damn good. But he was exactly the way they described him. Exactly. Season's over with. He had a $190 or something like that. You know what I mean? He had below average, but he made every play he can sit there. So I asked him, I said, what are you going to do this winter? He said, well, you know what? I'm going to go back and play winter ball. And I said, let me tell you something. You just got through playing 162 games at the major league level. You don't have to go out there and take more. What you do is you got to get stronger. You got to get quicker. You got to start building better arm strength. You got to start getting your body built pretty good. You know what I mean? You got to start building yourself like that. So I said, my son was going to the University of Minnesota with, John Anderson over there, which is a great coach and everything. And I called him on the phone. I said, I'd like to send this player over to you. And I told him it was,
Uh-oh. Hang on, Jim. I think you froze.
So would you mind left head, take ground balls every, but he is not to play one at bat. He's just going to go out there and have fun. And we want to do it for 6 weeks. That was the whole thing. But I want to work on his skill development. He says, done. What we did, Seattle paid for his hotel and everything like that. And my son at the time, was by the way, my son is, is broadcaster for the Kansas City. So anyway, but the bottom line is, he said, yeah, well, so they became really good friends. So anyway, he goes out there, and that's what he did. He stayed actually 8 weeks instead of the 6 weeks. He goes out there, and he's just having a ball. Never work on his skill. We don't spend time doing that anymore. But anyway, to make it, he comes back the next year. It's 240. We did it all again. He comes back. We trade him because A-Rod's now coming up, right? Well, that guy that couldn't do all that stuff was Omar Vizquel. Wow. A guy that could never hit in the big leagues, holds the record for the most hits for a shortstop in the major leagues because he played on both leagues, American League and National League.
Yep.
He got 10 Golden Gloves.
Yep.
And he's one of the best shortstops to ever play the game. Because don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what we need to do to become the frontline guy. And if we could do the frontline guy, we can use that. We made him. So he went out there and worked, and that became, what's going on. And basically, Pete, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm out here in the valley. We have a program here. It's called the Desert Nights Baseball, and it's a development program for young kids. I had 4 guys from the parents would bring them over to me and say, would you mind working with my son? Because he might have to get a scholarship, to go to college. And I said, okay. I said, I'd be love to. 4 of those guys went on to become #1 draft choices. Wow. And one of them was, was Brandon Wood for the Oakland A, for the Angels. And he'd come up there and he said, he's got a chance to go to Texas and get a scholarship, but they were concerned about his hitting. Well, we worked on all these things at a younger age. He went on and hit 22 home runs, you know what I mean? And he wound up becoming the #1 draft choice. And Augie Garrido calls me up on the phone. Says, hey, thanks a lot, Fritzy. You just took my shortstop that I was planning on having for the next 4 years, and now he's in the big leagues. And I laughed, and he said, but anyway, that was good. So we don't spend enough time working on the things to really make them skill development. And that's really, really important. And that's why I tell these guys, even with this virus going around right now and everybody's not be able to, travel. I said, well, yeah, but this might be a good time to really work on some things that we need to work on, such as exit speeds, such as arm strength. Brett Strong, pitching coach now with the Houston Astros. You know who he is. Everybody in baseball knows him.
He was on the show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, one of the smartest guys we've ever seen in the game of baseball. He was going to be my pitching coach when I went to China, but he got the job to be with the Cincinnati Reds to be their minor league pitching coordinator. Who eventually he went on to go to the Astros and everything like that. So I said, no, you got to take that job. But I said, outline your whole program. The Chinese had terrible arm strength, really bad, because they didn't know how to work on it. So I brought those techniques in, and we did it within 6 weeks. We added close to 10 miles per hour on every player on my team. Outfielder's got to throw. Shortstop's got to throw. Catcher's got to throw. We always think arm strength belongs to pitchers. No. If you want to play at the high level. So we focused in on that and took it and made it a priority. Then we had to get the exit speeds up. We already talked about that. And then we put ways to put the pieces together. Because if we're going to go to Olympic Games against the USA, Cuba, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, I go on, you saw all those teams over there. And I'm telling you, man, we're going to be embarrassed if we don't get our act together. So I said, okay. So after my first year, I was only there 3 months, my first year. I came back and after they wanted me to go to the Olympic trials for the Greek Olympics. And they wanted to go through the process. That's the way the Chinese think. That's going to be 6 years from now, but they want to find out exactly what we need to do. Because the host country gets an automatic slot in every event. And baseball is still in the Olympics. But you got to put somebody there. You see what I mean? So we had to put a team out there to play against those teams. And the Chinese just didn't want to get embarrassed. Well, we went out there and we worked on all that stuff. That's when I started really getting creative, about how do we make these guys faster? How do we make them quicker? But you give a goal to some of these younger players and tell them this is what we need to get you where you are from all these different levels. They usually tie on to that. And I'm going to give you time now. We're not going to do it overnight. And that's what I did with Omar Vizquel. And I've done it with several guys, all kinds of guys. I did that with Randy Kutcher. Remember I was telling you about what a great player he was? Mm-hmm. And so sure enough, he's hitting 360 at AAA. Somebody goes down at the major leagues. It was like a month into the season when I was managing at AAA that time before I became the manager of the Seattle Mariners. And the call comes down and says, so-and-so went down at the big league. I forget who the guy was. We need an infielder right away. I said, Randy Kutcher's ready to go. He goes, Randy Kutcher? He's not ready to play. I said, Randy Kutcher's ready to go. We did a drill called the drop drill. We went down there. He went up there, and he's hitting 360. I said, he's ready. Sure enough, he goes up there. He spent 8 years in the big leagues because of one drill. He learned how to become an outstanding breaking ball hitter, and he had 4 years with the Giants and 4 years with the Red Sox. So the bottom line is you never know. You just never know.
Jimmy, I'm going to get to Paul right now. Excuse me, Pat Ahern. Pat, you're unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Is audio okay? You can hear me fine?
Yeah, audio's great.
Okay, cool.
I can hear you, Pat.
I have a quick story for you and then a couple of questions, actually. So
sure.
I graduated 1988 at St. Bernard's High School. So I had a chance to spend some time with your father. And as a matter of fact, on his moving day, our whole team went over and helped him get everything out of his place across the street there.
Yeah.
So it was really
boy, that's going back. You're going back. That was, my father was, as you probably know, he was a lifer when it came to coaching.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was so awesome. Really... So anyways, my first question for you is, I'm a pitcher, and I'm really the reason why they made the DH. But when I was in pro ball, I made it a point to pal around with my teammates who were RBI guys and base stealers, just so that I could know, okay, what's the best way to keep guys from stealing bags off of me when I'm pitching? Or if the game's on the line and the RBI guy's at the plate, what's he thinking and how do I counteract that sort of thing? So my question for you is, I mean, you I'm sure spent some time in the clubhouse with guys like Koufax and Drysdale and Phil Regan and Claude Osteen. Did you ever get any sort of, you know, in reverse, pitchers giving you some ideas of how to approach things?
Pat, always. I feel that every player that I had, like I talk about Greg Maddux, just he'd come up to my office and we'd talk about situations, and the things that would come off his mind, you know what I mean, were just precious. Sandy Koufax, with that great arm he had a mind to go with it. He talked about how you beat that lineup. Then you talk about Drysdale and all these different guys. No, I all the time, I see, we know one thing for sure. You can do all the hitting you want, but you got to win with pitching. And you know what I mean? And you got to learn how to handle your staff. You got your 5 starters, and you got the bullpen, and you got your closer. And so I would always bring guys in, and we'd talk about situations. And it got to the point where when we had meetings, I went back to the old school. Instead of me flipping out scouting reports on different hitters. Now, most of the guys know who they were, but did they know, is he hot or is he cold? He's in a hot cycle or is in a, don't let that 0 for 4 yesterday fool you. He had 4 line drives and about killed somebody. Or don't let that, so yeah, I always took advantage of that. Case in point, let me give you an example. When you get a runner at first base and nobody out, or anytime there's a guy in first base, we found out if you have a good move to throw the ball to first base, and that when he gets on first base, you get the ball back in your hand. Now everybody's getting ready, and you start to get back on the mound. You get your sign. We always threw to first base. We wanted to give him our best move and give a real quick move over to first base. Boom! Because what happens is they remember this. Oh, he's got a good move. That would shut down. This is the big leagues now. We'll shut down the other team from even trying 90% of the time. 90% of the time. If we just showed that you had a pretty good move. So even though you're not picking guys off, you're putting the guy in the mind, is back in the mind over there saying, oh, he's got a good move. So that kind of stopped the running game. You know what I mean? So yeah. It was always sharing those ideas with everybody. Greg Maddux was the kind of guy, because when I sit there, we went to play the Montreal Expos up there in Montreal, and Larry Walker was hotter than hell. And when Larry Walker got hotter than hell, he was the best player in the league back then. And so we're sitting in a meeting one day, and I come in. This is what we do. This is the format that I had, and I learned it from Tony La Russa, but this is it. When I would go in there as a manager and say, now here's the hot guys. These are the guys that are really playing well. They're hot. We don't want so-and-so to beat us, like Larry Walker. Don't let him play. Don't go on her. Andre Dawson was up there and all these different guys. These are the kind of guys that we don't want to beat us, okay? And then this is how they're going to do it. This is their rotation. Here's their setup, guys, and this is going to be their closer. Then I would go out of the room, and then the pitching coach would come and say, okay, you heard what Skipper wanted to do. Now let's go through each hitter. And they would break him down and say, but we would always go to a guy. For instance, when you talk to hitters, we noticed one thing about when we played Tommy John. You remember Tommy John when he was with the Yankees? I mean, he was a junk ball pitcher. But before that, he was a left-handed power guy until he hurt his arm. And so now we couldn't hit him. We had all these Oakland A's guys, and Tommy was just throwing junk up there. And I mean, the ball would barely get to home plate. And so we started moving up in the batter's box, and he just moved. He just kept throwing the ball further out, and we just couldn't hit him. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the guy. And I'm the hitting coach, and Tony La Russa is the manager. And I said, there's one guy in this room here that crushes him, and that was Don Baylor. I said, Don, how do you hit Tommy John? You wear his ass out. He said, here's what I do. I back up as far as I can in the batter's box and way off the plate in the back of the batter's box. And that's the way I put it. But everybody else will say, no, you got to move closer. He said, no, I move back. Why? Because for him to throw a strike to the catcher, he had to have enough on it, and the ball would straighten out. Wouldn't sink, would straighten out. Make him throw the ball to the catcher. And all that junk he threw up there suddenly becomes batting practice. So I said, well, nobody's ever said, well, let's try it. because he's just embarrassing us. Let's just try something. Sure enough, 5 runs in the first inning. And we came back and got 3. So if somebody's whole different spin on the way that the traditional thing that we do, we said, no, let's try something different. So yeah, it's it. So anyway, getting back to Larry Walker. So Greg Magg said, Greg, how do you get, because I very seldom want to put him on the spot. I said, your thoughts on Larry Walker? And here's what he said. When he's in Montreal, he wants to pull. He wants to pull over the fence. And so you got to get him out of the way. But you got to make it think that you're going to go in on him. So you got to go in on his belt. You got to go underneath, but you got to change speeds up there because you got to make him think you're going to go in on him, but you got to get him out soft away. Okay, let's give it a shot. Sure enough, we had a good series against him. You know, we didn't keep him from killing us, but we kept it down. So we did it. So now we go over to Wrigley Field, and now here comes the Montreals. They're coming through now. You know, we go off and play everybody else, and now their turn to come to Wrigley Field. And so I walked to my hitters, my pitchers, and I said, hey, man, we did a great job against it. Now, here's guys on. And Larry Walker, we did a great job on him, and we just, stay with it. You go, Greg goes, no. Oh, no. He changes when he comes to Wrigley Field because he found it being shorter to shoot the ball to the gap, to the bleachers because it's shorter than down. It's 340 down there, and we got the wind to play with, too. He said, now he wants, you got to force him to pull the ball now, but you got to make him think you're going to go away. So you can go away, but you got to come inside the end with strikes. Anyway, to make a long story short, so yeah, we share with thoughts all the time. And that's the only way we learn as a team. With other guys having success, with certain guys. Here's the key. You're being a former pitcher. Who'd you play for, by the way?
I signed with Detroit originally, got up with them a little bit, and then bounced around AA, AAA, played for the Dodgers in AA and AAA, Seattle, and then went overseas a bit too.
Yeah, I know what you know. It's familiar. That's good. You probably learned a lot overseas too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Playing and coaching both.
A lot of guys now, because we noticed back when I came up in 1965. The Dodgers had 15 farm teams, 15.
Wow.
And now they only have 5. You know what I mean? And so we could find ways to really, to do it. But nowadays, you have 5 guys. So a lot of guys getting released. And so what they do, they go overseas. They'll play in Japan. They'll play in Korea. And then they get to, get some innings in, like you would need to get innings over there. And so then they would come back and go on to the big leagues. So we learn no matter where you go, you're going to learn different styles, So that's a good question, Pat. I mean, that really is a good question.
Pat, you had a second question too.
Yeah, I had one more. There's a couple of roles that you've been in your career that I'm curious if there's a good story regarding these. I just recently found out that you played the role of Native in an episode of Gilligan's Island, and also the role of Bum in an episode of Knight Rider. So I didn't know if any of those had some
Batman too, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Well, I never was a Knight Rider. Yes, I was in Batman. Correct. Batman and Gilligan's Island. No, I was not in Night. See, they had a couple, put me in a couple places that I'd never been as far as movies concerned.
Okay.
But I was in Batman and Gilligan's Island. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. It was really fun. During the off season, we didn't make the money like these guys are now. We had to get a job. And so being in Hollywood, I knew a couple of guys that were in the industry. And so they said, come on in. And I said, well, I don't like reading scripts. Don't worry about reading scripts. We got a nice, easy part for you.
Well, that's good. I mean, at least you got to spend some time with Ginger and Marianne, right?
Oh, yeah. Did I ever?
Jimmy, listen, we appreciate you. We're gonna finish off here because otherwise because I know you'll stand for 5 hours, but we can do more sections of this and other Zooms too. But go ahead.
I just want to say, right now I'm working here in the desert, and I think this is really important. And my whole incentive right now, my whole desire is I'm through playing. I'm retired. I'm working with youth kids right now. And I got started with a group called the Kelsey's Heroes. And what it was, it's a program for kids that are have problems, special needs kids. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing this for a while, and we, it's for kids that are special needs, and it's a tremendous program of taking kids that they play baseball, they play basketball, they swim, and they all this type of stuff. It's just a phenomenal program. It's a free program for all these kids sport has done so much for these guys.
That's
But
awesome.
Kelsey's Heroes is how I got started, and now we got this, it's called the Desert Knights Baseball. And my whole goal is to take these young kids and start working all the things we talked about, so that when they get into higher baseball, they're going to be ready. They have the tools now to go up there and play. So I just want to put that note down there.
No, and that's the question I had to kind of finish this off, which I think is perfect, is the development that we're talking about now, because a lot of coaches are out there. You talked about indoors. Right now there's a good time to work on the fundamentals, work on some training. What direction should we be going with our young kids to develop players? Because right now, the direction is we're playing a lot more games than we're playing right now. The direction is talk about that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, right. The program is called, we call it it's the Desert Knights Baseball. And it's a development program to develop baseball skills. We call tools of different tools to get us to another level. We do have a travel team, but the travel team is only because we want kids to get at bats. But the focus is we go out there and we train them, and we teach them what they need to do to build arm strength. We teach them what they need to do to get the bat speed. See, when you have an exit speed of 100 miles an hour, the two most important factors is solid contact and bat speed. Of the two, obviously, solid contact is important. Once you develop the solid contact and you're hitting your targets, because we put a target out there, a line drive target, and then we can add all the speed stuff and work from there. The same thing with throwers. When you develop arm strength, you have to have arm strength number one. This is from Brett Strong. Number one, arm strength. Number two, there's got to be accuracy. You got to be able to throw the ball where you want it to go. I don't care if you're a shortstop, outfielders, or whatever, even a pitcher. So we have arm strength, and then we have what we call accuracy, okay? And the third one, of course, is quickness, because shortstops so different than catchers. And catchers so different than outfielders. And pitchers so different. You see what I mean? So each position, you have to have the arm strength. You have to have the accuracy, but you got to have the quickness to play that position. And so that's what we really focus on, the skills, and then let them go out there. And remember this. Every coach got to remember this. You're going to fail. That's part of the game. When you fail, it's the first step to greatness, because now you know what you need to work on. You need to know the things you need to do to get you to the next level. And that's what it's important. Being the big leagues, they all make mistakes. They all make errors. But it's about going out there and being consistent. And the only way you're going to be consistent is to practice and practice and practice. And when you do that, when you get in the ball game, you can actually say to yourself, I've been here before because I worked out this. I know what to do or what to anticipate. Now all I got to do is execute. So that's what I did. And I think when we did with the Chinese, because of the style of training over there, they were real hard on their players. And I told them, nope, we're not going to be hard. We're going to have a good time. We're going to go out there and learn. And it's going to take time. And you're going to fail. Big deal. We've all done it. Failure is not even a problem. We're not going to even worry about that because it's going to happen. And once you take the fear away from a player, a failure, whether it's a hitter, infielder, pitcher, whatever, you got them moving in the right direction. So that's all. It's about attitude. And the one thing I keep telling coaches, make it fun. Simplicity is the genes of great athlete. Let them go out there and get their reps. Let them go out there and get their swings and everything. But they'll learn. And the good players, when I'm feeling good about myself. That's when you start seeing the success. And it's important to get them started at the right age. That's my thoughts.
And finally, what's your recommendation when it comes to, getting these young kids, as far as games? Should we be playing more games, less games, more practices? I know you just talked about obviously training a lot, but it seems like we're heading in that direction where we're playing a lot more games at the young levels than we are practicing.
Way too much. Way too much practice. Too much games without coaching. If travel team people have said that the travel teams are ruining baseball. They're ruining baseball because they're not giving the kids a chance to really work on the skills that's going to make them successful. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay.
I think you still there?
I'm here. I just can't hear you there. Okay, I can hear you now.
No. That's fine. That's fine. Then let's end it on Jimmy because we're past our time, and I can't thank you enough for going way past our time. Actually, let's end it on this. Your last advice to all our coaches out there. Any last minute advice, and then we'll close it off.
My point is make sure it's a team sport, because remember this. The most important thing that we learn from team sports is this. The most important thing, coaches, is that we all need each other. You're going to play a role somewhere in the season, whether it's the major leagues or whatever. We need to understand we all need one. To remember, every player on your team is important. Don't just latch on to the Mike Trouts, which I wish we had a bunch of those. But you got the idea.
Absolutely. All right, man. Can't thank you enough. We told you this was going to be exciting, a lot of information and dynamic, and it surely hit that mark 100%, Jimmy. Can't thank you enough, man. God bless you and thanks for all the time you gave to all our coaches here.
Thank you, Pete. And let's do it again sometime. Good to see you. By the way, everybody out there, Pete Caliendo happens to be one of the better coaches around. He's been all over the world. And he's phenomenal, and we've been friends for a long time. And one of the reasons why he is what he is, because he takes the time to learn the game and how to develop players. So I want to thank you for the time and come out and talk.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. That's Jim Lefebvre.
Go, Pete.
Special
Thanks,
thanks
Pete.
to Jim. Thank you to our
Thanks,
producer, Brian Kroc. Hey, please mute your mics, guys. We're live. Also, we're taping. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. You can hang on. We're live on Facebook, live on Twitter. Mute your mics, please. Again, special thanks to Jim. Special thanks to our producer, Brian Kroc, Lineup Media Group. Special thanks to everybody in the U.S. and around the world for listening to the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds. I love the challenge, the status quo. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. Stay safe. I know we're starting to get back on the field. Sooner or later, the whole country, the whole world will be back playing baseball, the greatest game in the world. God bless y'all, coaches, and thanks for being on the show. Don't forget, do us one favor. All we ask, if you like the shows, spread them out, send them to all your coaches and players and parents, have them join us. That's all we ask of you. The shows are all free. So thank you, everybody. And again, Pete Caliendo, we'll see you on Friday's show, 11 o'clock Eastern time will be Fred Claire, Dodgers general manager, former general manager of World Series. Again, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the next show. Hang on.